Hi, I'm Sara.
And I'm Rena, and welcome to
Biopic, a podcast story. This is a podcast where we dissect the good, bad, ugly, and absurd of this specific genre of motion picture, the biopic. If you want to learn more about us, our scoring system, and how we choose movies, please check out our special introductory episode, Introduction. Who are we and what are we doing?
Sara. What movie are we talking about this week?
This week, we will be talking about the South Korean movie, The Attorney, and we are so excited to welcome back to the show our special guest star, cartoonist and Eisner Award nominee, Ryan Estrada.
Hello, I'm excited to talk about this movie. I love this movie so much.
It's really good.
Yeah, we loved this. This was delightful. And Ryan, I'm sure you have been very busy since we last chatted, and also know that you have a new book out called Good Old-Fashioned Korean Spirit. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Sure, yeah. If you're into stories of political intrigue in 1980s Korea after watching this movie, Good Old-Fashioned Korean Spirit is about just that, but the politics are kind of in the background. It's about a bunch of city kids who are forced to spend the night on a spooky old persimmon farm with a bunch of grumpy old ladies, and nobody gets along. It's a real spooky persimmon farm with real spooky ladies that I used to go to regularly. We'd have like farm parties, and so I got to use my own experiences with my wife's experiences and tell a story about. It's basically a horror story, except for all the ghost stories turn out to be important bits of Korean folklore, and what people are really afraid of is each other because they live under a dictatorship where they're forced to fear one another. And once they realize, oh, wait, we're kind of all in it together, maybe we should work together, things get better.
Huh. Not timely at all.
I'm writing about the 1980s. It's the world that keeps catching up as I write these books.
Anything else going on that's exciting? The last time we had you on, we were talking about your wife, who seems like a real-life superhero, and her book club work. I'm wondering, how much does this movie affect you from that perspective? How real is it to her experience?
The Burin bookcase, which is what this movie is based on, is actually mentioned in Banned Book Club. Because that was kind of what was hanging over people's heads. This happened in 1981. Her book club was in 1983. And that was kind of the fear. In this movie, they were accused of reading banned books when they're just doing their homework. My wife's club was actually reading the books that they were accused of reading and risking their lives. And what hung over their head is, look what happened to these folks. They're still in jail. Our entire series, Banned Book Club, No Rules Tonight, Good Old-Fashioned Korean Spirit, are about those years of her life and how she lived in a world where the government could just decide, you're not Korean enough, you need to go to prison.
Wow.
Again, nothing similar to our current world.
Not at all, no. Rewatching this movie now, I watched this movie years ago when it came out, and I didn't quite understand everything. And then when we started working on Banned Book Club, I purposely didn't rewatch it because I didn't want to accidentally steal things from it or make it too similar. And watching it now, after not only having researched what actually happened during that time, but now seeing it happen again in my own country, I'm like, this movie is about the world right now. What is happening?
But also incredibly inspiring too.
Yeah, fantastic movie.
We're gonna depend on your insights here. Can you tell us about the real story and the people portrayed in The Attorney?
I'll start by saying, you had mentioned this is a bit of a diversion for you in that we're talking about a movie where they change everyone's names. It's a very strange movie to make a movie so much about someone's life based on their autobiography, but never change their name and never mention that they became the president of Korea.
Why would you want your name changed? Because this seems like a very flattering portrayal.
This movie came out 4 years after he committed suicide, No Mu-hyun. What happened after the events of the film, this guy was he was a lawyer, he wanted to make money, and then all of a sudden he realized there's something more important. He started caring a lot about activism, started fighting against the dictatorship. And then when Korea became a democracy, he ran for president. And because of all the work he had done, he was the first Korean political candidate ever to have their own fan club, their own supporters. And he He became president, again, still never went to college, high school graduate, didn't do that great in high school, but people loved him. He became president. And then the people who he was opposing, who were the ones that used to be a dictatorship, they can't just arrest people now, but they can still drum up the same sort of fake allegations and just constantly accused him of everything they could. Imagine like Benghazi hearings for his entire presidency and after, of them like if they like see a weird transaction on his bank account, they're like, that must have been a bribe. At one point, they found a fancy watch, and he left the presidency and became a farmer. And they like found a fancy watch in his field that somebody probably threw there and was like, he's getting rid of evidence, he's taking bribes. And he's like, dude, I'm a farmer. What are you talking about? And they started going after his family. They started going after everyone he'd ever worked with. And eventually he just couldn't take it anymore. He wrote a letter that said, I'm causing pain to everyone I know, and jumped off of a cliff in the back of his farm. This is like right after that happened. And you got to imagine that everyone in Korea had an opinion, and they were very different. I'm sure you can imagine deaths recently in America where if you made a movie about it, it would be a huge thing and everyone would have an opinion. So I think the creators of the movie were like, you know what? This is just a movie about a guy. Forget it. Forget him. They're going to humanize him. Let's just take this little bit of a story and talk about a person who is complicated and has good things about him, bad things about him, and you make up your own opinion. And so they made this movie that they're calling fiction inspired by him, but I've read interviews with people, like the people in the movie, that are like, yeah, that's what happened. It was a very weird reaction because the people that were against No Mu-hyun were still very much against this film, to the point that they would buy up all the tickets in every theater so that no one could buy them, and at the last minute cancel their tickets so that no one could get in to see the movie. But it still became the biggest Korean movie of the year, one of the biggest Korean movies in history beyond that, because other people were rushing in to buy tickets however they could. And it became a huge hit and had so much controversy around it that I imagine it might have been even more wild if they called it the No Mu-hyun story. As we mentioned, there is a long history of this in Korea. A lot of movies change names just because, especially coming from a dictatorship when people could be thrown in prison for life for making something like, but now people like trying to sue for things that a lot of times you see someone say, my name is Walt, and you're like, is it though? Are you sure? Because I'm pretty sure you're a very famous politician. But in this one, they're like, he would probably like this, but let's just do it to avoid the controversy. They also were like, we're not going to sugarcoat it and make a thing about how great he is. He's kind of a dick in a lot of this movie, but learns to be a better person. He has a very complicated history, so this takes a little snapshot of his life that really, just like the last movie we watched, at the beginning and end has like shows you like metaphor for what happened next and the support that they got.
Rena, did you want to talk about the unfortunate second opinion situation we had?
Yeah, Ryan. So last time when we watched The President's Last Bang, great movie also, I did the math from the scores that we didn't write down at the time, and it turned out that it did actually earn second opinion. It got an 8.06.
And there was a hot mess of me not being prepared and just making up numbers wildly and forgetting what they were.
We have all been there. I have certainly been there where I've been like, oops, I forgot to do my scores.
I don't know if you want to record an addendum at some point, or we did post a thing about it with the corrected score on the website. So that's that.
Sometimes we get stuff wrong. It's okay. And with that, Rena, do you want to give us the trigger warning before we launch into talking about this amazing movie?
Yes, this movie contains depictions of and or references to drunkenness, pork stew, lawyers, corruption, real estate, South Korean politics, torture, court cases, poorly conducted court cases, accusations of poor nutrition, mothers-in-law, and a one-time only case of accepting a movie where names are changed due to culturally specific particularities related to getting sued in South Korea. Also, banned books.
Indeed. And
that's
Rena,
pretty much any conversation with me.
And communism, or accusations of it.
Rena, can you also give us the spoiler warning?
Spoiler warning. We are going to spoil everything, including possibly the major plot points in works of narrative art having nothing to do with this particular movie. Consider yourself warned. For sources used in this episode, we have Ryan. Neither of us knows very much about South Korea. Like, even knowing where to begin to research would have been out of our depth. There isn't a heck of a lot in the library in English related to anything here. So we're relying on you, Ryan, to let us know how this joins into the real story.
Ryan, do you want to talk a little bit more about this movie? This movie was hugely successful. It made $75 million worldwide against an $8 million budget, which is pretty impressive. It's a wonderful film. It was nominated for a ton of international awards for filmmaking. Do you want to take us through a little bit more about the movie itself beyond the insane controversy around being able to see it?
Yeah, so this is inspired by the Burum book case, which is a situation in Busan, South Korea, where I live, where the National Security Agency raided a book club that was literally just a book. I wrote a book about a book club that was actually reading banned books that my wife was in, but this is just nerds doing their homework. But they were a task. I don't know if this relates to anyone nowadays, but say there's a police agency who is responding to the president's wild accusations that there's a large number of criminals in the country, and it's their job to catch that large number of criminals. So they then have to make criminals by grabbing random people off the street and making fake accusations. I know we can't relate to that today. But
not at all.
Believe it or not, they did that in under a dictator in 1980s Korea, and they just rounded up a bunch of college kids doing their homework and beat them until they confessed to planning to overthrow the government with North Korea, and then put them on trial. Like, the way it worked then is that this was just procedure. Everyone involved knew this is what was happening, but they're not going to be the ones to speak up to the dictatorship and then have false charges thrown against them. And it came down to one lawyer who no one took seriously, and he was kind of under the radar enough that he could get in and no one would suspect him of anything or even think to try to discredit him because he's already discredited. And he was actually had a personal connection that he was like, maybe I should actually fight back and try to win this case, and learn that even if he doesn't win the case, someone needs to stand up and say something. We can't all pretend this is normal. And it's about that case. And in that case says so much about Korean history and Korean present and situations all around the world.
You may stop me at any point when I am attempting to pronounce names because I am bad at English sometimes. But this movie stars Song Kang-ho, Thank you. Song Kang-ho, who starred in Parasite a few years back, and everyone would recognize him right away from that, and was directed by Woo Seok-yang.
And Woo-seok-yang?
Yes, thank you. Woo Seok-yang. But Rena's like, this is torturing me.
No, it's torture because I couldn't have done better on pronouncing the names. Ryan, can you please explain how names work in Korea in terms of what is your surname, what is your given name, what name which people use with you, and why are there so many people named Park?
The family name comes first, and then there's a 2-syllable name following that, which has really confused people that I put my wife's name in the Korean order on our book cover, and it has been wrong every single time. People just wildly guess. And there are very few surnames, so there's a lot of Kims, a lot of Lees, and a lot of Parks.
So when they're alphabetizing the names of Western authors at the bookstore, how do they file them?
Well, they're still going by last names. It's,
And Rena, it looks like you had a question here about the sums of money they were talking about too.
Yes. Ryan, can you please explain what the sums of money that they are talking about in the movie mean? Because they made no sense in the subtitles. I saw 25,000 quoted as the price of a nice looking house at one point, but I know that the 45.6 billion won prize money in season 1 of Squid Game, this is how much we know about Korea, equals about 33.4 million American dollars. So I have no idea what they were talking about when they mentioned sums of money in The Attorney. whether there was a crazy inflation or if this is a thing with the subtitles on Pluto TV where we were able to watch this movie for free, and so should our listeners.
Yeah, I remember being shocked by how cheap that apartment was. That's one of the funniest thing to me about this movie is that apartment. In that apartment is his symbol of I've made it, I can buy this apartment. Literally 2 weeks before I saw this movie, my wife and I were shopping for an apartment and looked at that apartment, that literal apartment building. It is the biggest dump. I wouldn't even, I'm like, I feel like I'm in a murder house. We need to get out of here. It's the biggest dump you've ever seen in your life. And that's what's so funny is that his dream apartment is not that great. So maybe that cost $25,000 back in the day. I don't know.
People are quoted as saying, I think the sum's like $500 a month or a week or something sounded like a high salary. I was just confused.
Well, the economy was in a very bad place in 1981.
Okay.
You mentioned watching this on Pluto TV. My settings kept trying to make me watch the Steve Harvey show. Every time like the connection timed out or something, it would skip over to the Steve Harvey show, which was really interesting. I don't know what was going on there, but technology is magic.
Yeah, mine seemed to know that I'm someone who lives in the past a lot, the much greater past, since yours at least put you close to this century, Sarah, whereas mine kept cutting off the attorney and switching to the Andy Griffith show.
But Pluto is free, so you do get what you pay for. I also got a lot of ads for a thing called the Good Feet store, which sounds like a racket. It's like a place where you can buy like insoles, and they have storefronts, which reminds me of the Mattress racket, which you don't need me to talk about right now, but basically the conspiracy theory that all mattress stores are actually a front for something else, because there's no way we need that many mattress stores in this country. My mattress thing is real tinfoil hat territory.
I don't know what it would be a front for. The attorney is much more interesting than mattresses.
Then my theories of my cockamamie theories about mattresses. Let's talk about the movie.
So we set the scene. I realized we're a few years after the president's last day. So Ryan, can you set the scene in terms of where politics are at, where Korea is at? The markers on This Is 1981 are not as strong as they'd be in an American movie. I mean, it felt authentic to the time in terms of, well, this is how ordinary people might have looked. I feel like in American films, when they're setting a film at a certain time and place in the past, it comes across much stronger than it would if you were actually there.
I mean, basically this comes very soon after President's Last Bang, and basically what happened is we saw the dictator get assassinated. Right after that, a new president was elected, and immediately the last guy's, like, one of his soldiers was like, nope, we're back, and did another coup and took over again. And now we're right back to dictatorship. Because of how messily that ended up, nothing got resolved, and a new dictatorship begins and is even more brutal to make sure that it doesn't happen again. No one is able to take away his power again. And so that's kind of where we're coming in, is that everyone's like, we've been through this. I thought we fixed it. We didn't. So let's just keep our heads down. Let's not acknowledge it. Everything's fine. We're cool. And so that's why, like, the main character doesn't even know this is happening, because he's like, look, I'm busy with lawyer stuff. I didn't know we're under a dictatorship. So, yeah, we're coming in right there. I definitely can see all the 80s-ness of it, having written a book in that time and having to research hairstyles and dorky outfits and bowl cuts and whatnot. I tried to create a blend of, I want the story to feel modern, so let's look at my wife's yearbook and take some outfits, take some hairstyles, but not overdo it. This movie's like, let's 80s up these hairstyles. Let's make these lapels like way too big. Let's make this 80s.
I loved it. And I love this opening. We open with like some really jaunty music, and it feels almost like a Woody Allen movie where I was like, where's the monologue about how women don't understand him and he doesn't understand women? Or also Joseph Cotton being boring in post-World War II Europe. We see our protagonist, who's, I just want to make sure I have his character name right here.
Song Woo-suk.
Song Woo-suk. So Song is heading up the stairs at someone's office, and he's holding a box of beverages. Can you tell us what these drinks were?
They're basically like little old man sports drinks, Bacchus, and there's kind of a weird connotation to Bacchus because it's become a thing, especially in certain areas of Seoul. There are Bacchus ladies. There's an amazing movie called The Bacchus Lady, but they are old women who sit in the park, and when they see old men walk by, they offer them a Bacchus, and that's kind of code for like, come in this room and drink a tiny sports drink with me, and then they'll offer them additional services for very small amounts of money. It's making this guy look like a little shady. They're really setting him up as like a Saul Goodman in this world. Like, he didn't go to college, he graduated high school barely and passed the bar, and he's just like, they're never going to invite me into the like big opportunities, so I need to find whatever little opportunity I can. I need to weasel my way into rooms by like bringing gift boxes of old man drinks. And he's just going to do whatever he can.
Which I respect. One of my favorite kind of characters to show up in a movie is the B-list hustler attorney who goes out and makes good, like your Joe Pesci and My Cousin Vinny or Denzel Washington in Philadelphia. Like, they're always great characters.
That's this guy, yeah.
What is the situation in Korea around lawyering? Because law school is highly recommended.
Yeah, I think that was just a specific period in the 80s where they had passed a new law that you didn't need to go to college as long as you could pass the bar. This is this little window of time where someone like this could exist. He couldn't get the big opportunities, but like there was the whole thing where his new racket is filling out housing forms because there was such a demand that they said, you know what, let's let lawyers do it. But all lawyers are like, I'm not going to do that. That's beneath me. And he's like, I'll do it. I'll do all of them.
Which, it's always a smart play if you're going to enter into an industry that's super competitive. Like, figure out the thing that no one else wants to do and be amazing at it.
He was.
Yeah. And also, like, when he's saying that he's a notary, I'm like, I don't think this is the same kind of notary that we have in the U.S. where, like, I can go out and get my notary license and become a notary. I think there's a difference between this and, like, the stamper person in the U.S., but he sets up a really smart racket here. And we also get a really nice flashback here to when he is younger. And he is running around and his wife has had a baby. And birth in Korea looks like it's a much nicer experience than it is here in the United States. I was like, oh, look at that nice room.
I mean, I don't know what it was in the 80s, but healthcare's nice here.
We see that he sold his books to get money to pay for the hospital, and then his mother-in-law covers it. We never get that scene where, oh, my mother-in-law respects me now, which I'm okay with.
We get the history of how he scrapped his way to becoming a lawyer because he had to do something.
Yeah, basically he dined and dashed at a restaurant and didn't pay the months of backlog he owed, and that's the little bit of money that allowed him to get his books back and keep studying and pass the bar.
So, what are the rules about becoming a judge? Because it seems like he became a judge pretty fast and then stepped down from it. So
again, this is 1980s under a dictator, so rules were very different than they are now. And I think that's kind of the weird mess of it, is that, like, how is it easier to become a lawyer than it is to become a notary? It seems like it would be the other way around. It was just topsy-turvy world. Everything was a mess. I think a lot of it was, like, people got positions based on, like, allegiance to regimes and whatnot, and I think he somehow weaseled his way into a position. And yeah, they didn't really get into why he left, but there's clearly a reason that he left. There was probably some kind of disagreement or something about why he couldn't stay in that position. I think he was given an opportunity and it didn't work out.
He shows up at the restaurant that he dined and dashed at.
Also, before, there's this older guy who seems like some kind of a mentor to it, or that he has a lot of respect for. Can you explain who this character is supposed to be, Ryan?
The character is Kim Sang-pil, who is based on a guy named Kim Gwang-il, if you want to see how closely these things are related. No, totally not the same guy. There's 2 letters difference there. Who was kind of basically a very powerful attorney who had been discredited because he stood up against the government. They took away his law license because that's kind of showing the risks that he's taking. He just kind of took a case he wasn't supposed to take, or took a stance he wasn't supposed to take, and they drummed up a controversy, accused him of something, and took away his law license. So this guy can't practice law, but our main character, I feel weird calling him by his fake name they made up, but Usuk, also weird having a character's name who sounds so similar to Yusuk. But he's like, this guy is very powerful, but right now he can't practice. So if I get in with him now when he's at his lowest, then when he gets his law license back, I can be a big shot, is basically his move. And so he's kind of trying to get in with him. That guy, the real guy, later went on to become his chief of staff when he became president.
Oh, how nice.
That's wonderful. Yeah, and he shows up at the restaurant where he dined and dashed and is trying to pay them back. And the proprietress of the restaurant says, old debts are settled by face, not by money, which means you just need to show up if you want to pay us back. And I love this.
He has so much shame about dining and dashing that he's just like, I think this means I have to eat this soup every meal, every day for the rest of my life.
And we see his law partner guy tell him, you need to eat a more balanced diet. Let's go get some fish.
Yeah, and this guy's sick of this soup. And you can tell even the woman that he's trying to pay back is like, do you really got to come here every day? But he really I think he sees her as a mother figure to him, and he really wants her to be proud of him. And her son is when he dined and dashed, he's like, she's in the room, I can leave. And her son, who was a little boy then, he didn't realize he was there doing his homework and saw him. So he has so much shame for that moment that he wants both of them to be proud of him. And I don't know if you recognized Jinwoo, who plays the older version of the son, who's the kid who gets arrested. He was 333 in Squid Game, the bad guy in season 2. The crypto coin.
Oh my gosh.
What an actor.
There's so many great performances in this movie. He seems like a really honorable dude in the ways that he wants to be an honorable dude. Obviously, he's also motivated by making money and isn't much of an idealist, but also he is like taking care of his family, and he's trying to, like make up for that one time.
He's sort of a lovable scamp, and then it seems like many other lawyers have caught on to the whole notarizing thing. So he's switching from real estate notarizing to tax law because the field is now overcrowded, and his partner guy approves. But Ryan, does his new tax lawyer slogan sound catchier in Korean than it does in English?
In English, it seems like he's really proud of that interest pun. I don't think it's necessarily a good one. I think he just is so proud of himself.
Okay. Because he says this thing, and his partner guy is like, yes, this is the best. And I'm like, really? This isn't translating? I could hear the Korean, but it didn't sound like it was like rhyming or having any cadences to it. So that was a cultural thing where I just wanted to check. But again, they're making money hand over fist. They get a secretary. He has lots of cute little moments with his wife, including like explaining the secretary to her. And we see him being like a lovable family guy too.
And also a guy who's not that interested in people protesting, which sounds like people were exhausted by that at the time, just by keeping their heads down, because there's a protest outside his office and he goes down to try and disperse it. But then we see this moment of like a stormtrooper-esque soldier kind of walking toward him in shadow, and immediately cut to an induction ceremony where soldiers are being sworn into duty and sort of start to get a sense of what the government is run like.
So these are the guys who are torturing people in President's Last Bang and torturing people again here too.
Yeah, this is basically KCAA and other such. There's so many organizations and groups. They're just kind of trying to shut down any protests. And there's a protest outside his apartment or outside his office is specifically about him and how he's kind of single-handedly changed what lawyers do in Busan, because now everybody's like, look how much money this guy's making. And they're all like, hey, we need lawyers. Like, we're getting arrested and tortured. Like, we need lawyers. And thanks to you, everybody's doing housing contracts. Like, can we have some legal help?
I have a question about the military. Do you have like a conscription? Is there a draft? Is it voluntary? How do people get involved in the military?
Korea has mandatory military service. every man between certain ages has to join the military for 1 year. Now it's mostly just training to make sure everyone's ready in case North Korea attacks. But back then, it would be very more active. Like, a lot of people were thrown into situations like we talked about the Gwangju incident, which is what they were talking about in the last movie, where soldiers just slaughtered an entire city. Those people were under mandatory military service, didn't know where they were going. They were told they were going to North Korea, and they just opened trucks and let them run out and told them to start attacking. And like, they didn't realize until like halfway through the situation, like, wait a minute, I've been here before. This is not too far from where we started.
Why are they having them attack other South Koreans?
Just like this movie, they needed to create enemies, and they needed to make it seem like there was an infiltration of North Koreans trying to overthrow the government that only they could save them from. And after we wrote our book that mentions that, we learned that there was actually a short list of schools they were going to blame, and one of them was the school my wife went to. They ended up choosing Gwangju University because one of their political rivals was from Gwangju, and they wanted to make Gwangju people look bad so that he wouldn't get elected or have any political power. And they literally just slaughtered a city of protesters and then shut down. There's another great movie about that also stars Song Kang-ho as a guy who wants money but then learns to care about something, called A Taxi Driver, that gets into that. That's kind of what this whole era was about, is like, we don't actually have enemies because we have all the power, so we need to create them.
We see him show up at the restaurant. He makes them reopen for the night, which I was like, come on, man, don't do this.
Yeah, he's getting drunk with a bunch of guys from his high school alumni club, and he rags on the journalists. They get into a physical altercation in the restaurant. So is this one of those scenes where it would be dishonorable for everyone to not get drunk that you talked about last time?
In this case, they're not there with their boss, so it's not like anyone can force them, but he's like decided, I'm the big shot. This is his moment. I'm sure in high school he was not the big shot. I learned the actual No Moo Hyun, when he was in high school, was actually kicked out because he was elected class president, but the school had a contest to write a letter, a birthday letter for the dictator. And he said it was stupid and didn't want to write one. And so he got in trouble and was kicked out. So he actually did care a little bit more than the film let on early on. He was not the most popular in high school. And so I think the thing is, now I've made money, I can be the big shot. And that's why he won't take no for an answer that we're closing, because he's like, come on, guys, like, it's my first chance to look like a big shot. Like, let us in. I wanted to take them to my personal place where I know all the people and they know me. He's pushing everyone to have fun and get drunk. And this guy's like talking about actual politics. He's a reporter that said he's a coward. He only has his job because he doesn't report what's actually happening. He shut up and puts his nose down. And Song Kang-ho's character is just like, yeah, I don't want to think about the world right now. I'm feeling like a fancy boy.
They're laughing kind of at what's happening with the government with that kind of ironic distance that you can have sometimes. And part of their confrontation is about not taking what they're seeing seriously because they think that they're protected from it, which sounds familiar.
Yeah, it's going good for me. I'm doing good.
Yeah, what's the problem? It's a pretty ugly fight. They do, like the trailer fight from Raising Arizona in this poor woman's restaurant. There's broken windows and all sorts of nonsense. The night ends poorly for everybody. It's a bad night out. In order for this guy to care, in order for this guy to do what he does, they need to show his shame. He already had shame. He thought he fixed it, and then he does something so much worse that now he's like, oh, no, now I got more shame. As much as he wants to embrace this way of being, like, he can't quite get all the way there. Like, he's a good person. And then we see some subterfuge here with a military meeting where they're setting up this soldier to be doing bad things, and to see this location where we will eventually go back to when we find out about the torture that's going on. We start following the restaurant owner's son.
I want to jump in that scene, yes, you were talking about. The line that I loved in that scene was when he said, this country would be damned if there were real commies. Meaning, you're talking about, they're not talking about how we're going to catch these communists. They're like, straight up, well, there are no communists, but we got to make some. Like, And he said, like, my father said, we're not in catching criminals, we're in preventing them. So like, if we throw the hammer down at someone who has done nothing, people aren't going to do stuff because they're like, look what happens when you do nothing. They're not even talking around it. They're just straight up saying it. And that kind of ties into a line from the previous scene after Song Kang-ho breaks the window and trashes the restaurant. And he's telling Ju, or he's telling the restaurant owner's son, you have to show respect to me. And the son says, I have to clean up this mess. And he's talking about the glass, but it's a metaphor for like, the young people have to clean up the mess that you guys are creating. We don't have time to bow to you.
I love that. And they're going to create a scene where these kids are definitely doing schoolwork and doing teen stuff. They're flirting with each other and reading poetry and chatting about when they've been in love. It's absolutely a legit teen book club going on.
This boy is so awkward. Like he's just trying to read the book, and all the girls are like giving him Google eyes and asking him personal questions. He's like, "Oh, can we talk about the book, please? I don't want to talk about. I'm nervous about girls."
This really puts a pin in the idea that he's very young.
It's like this metaphor for innocence. That like, not only is he innocent of being a communist, this boy's so innocent he doesn't even get it. He doesn't even get that every girl in the room has given him Google eyes.
No, he definitely does not.
He is an innocent boy.
Then the soldiers bust in on them and chase them all down and arrest them.
Yeah, and again, like that conversation they had, he's like, we need to find commies. Just like, the president has said there's this many communists, we need to find that many. Just like, say, if a president said there's this many criminal illegals, you need to find that many. If that thing were ever to happen, hypothetically.
I mean, how could such a thing happen? Our setup here is that 9 kids have been arrested and they need a lawyer, and they're talking about who could do this, and they think that that Song can do it because he's not a threat, because he's a rich guy lawyer.
Because right, and at some point, like, these big shots have come in, and it's supposed to be a huge contract. So, and they'll turn up again, but he has been extremely successful anyway.
Yeah, and I don't know if you caught that
because no one will suspect him.
I don't know if you caught that the big shots from the construction company that he's working for are the same people he worked for when he built that apartment.
I did not catch that.
And he was not treated well. I was trying to learn more about it. That the articles I was reading in the interviews kept referring to it as forced labor, and I don't get how that worked. But basically, he was treated very, very poorly in that job, and now he's like hobnobbing with the CEO of the company that treated him horribly, and he has to choose between, do I get a lot of money from this guy who like is the antithesis of what this country needs, or do I give up everything to fight a fight I can never win on behalf of the country's soul?
I did not pick up on that particular connection.
No.
But the guy that we saw at the beginning comes to track him down. It's not a big yacht. He's talked about being in the Olympics.
We talked about those Olympics in our book a little bit because it was a big thing in Korea. It was their version of bread and circuses. The government had the 3S policy: sports, sex, and screen. People won't care that we're destroying them if we give them sports, sex, and movies. And so their big thing was to get the Olympics there. And then during the Olympics, they basically rounded up all the homeless and poor people and put them in camps. Like Squid Game is kind of based on that. Like the uniforms they wear in Squid Game are the uniforms that people had to wear in those camps. And so it was a huge human rights violation, those Olympics. And again, just the dorkiness of that tiny yacht. I love scenes like that. It's kind of like in Breaking Bad when Walt has made all that money and he goes to Home Depot and is like, I'll take the tankless water heater. Money is no object. I love scenes like that. It's so much funnier when someone has some tiny dream and they achieve it than if they like bought a skyscraper.
Yeah.
He's like living the life. He's talking about retiring, which if you have retirement and amateur sailor money, that's pretty good life.
Yes, we find out that Jinwoo is going to be on trial, and his mother comes to Song's. Sorry, I can't. I'm so sorry for how bad we are with these names.
Song.
Yeah, the mother comes to Song's office and begs him to take the case on.
He has a crisis of conscience, and he goes to track her down and says, okay, we're doing this. Let's go to jail. They get there, and he does like all that lawyer shit that you want your lawyer to do on her behalf. He goes in there and is just like, this is an outrage. We need to see him. We need to see him right now. We have the right to do this. And the police look at his business card and they're like, yeah, she brought a notary. Let's let them see him. Because they're kind of like, what's he going to do?
Yeah, and there's that scene that when he makes the decision and he meets the big shot from the construction company, and he's like, yeah, I'm on your side. I want democracy, but like this country's too poor for all that, you know? That's when he's like, no, I disagree with you. Poor people can have justice. And he's like, I guess I got to do it. And I love that scene when he goes to meet the mom and he's just on her steps all night, just like she was, as desperate as she was. It's so touching. That's actually a place near my house. It's like they got little signs up that it was filmed there. It's a really beautiful little on this island, like the seaside. I went there once with my wife, and the building right next door to it was for sale really cheap. And I was trying to convince her to buy it and turn it to a guest house and call it the Songgang Hotel. But she's like, is a pun really worth investing all her? I'm like, but his name is Songgang Ho and it's a hotel. It could be a Songgang Hotel. And he couldn't sue us because Ho is just part of the name of the hotel. We're not saying it's his name.
She didn't go for it.
She didn't go for it.
There are a lot of great business decisions that have been made that are predicated on puns.
And I also really loved that scene with like the son of the construction guy who talks about, I was educated in the West. And he's like, but our income needs to be 3 times higher. But I also feel like that you see that character a lot. Like he's every well-off donor.
And it's also, who is it that's deciding the wages, guy? Mr. CEO of the largest construction company? Who is it that's making the wages too low?
Not me. And we see Jinwoo, and he is very clearly like so traumatized. He's been told what to say, and he's very clearly been tortured. And it's very effective, this scene, and it's so sad.
And again, in writing my book, I interviewed people who went through that exact torture from those exact people, went through all the same things. Multiple people that would be disappeared off the street like once or twice per semester. Everybody knew like, oh, he's not in class, he must be being tortured again. That's just what they did.
It's so awful. And he's so young, and we see like the bruises on his body, and then we see the guards like being like, we got to get him out of here. And there's a bit of a scene, but then Sung is in. He is like, oh, I have to do this.
The mother is so good in this scene because it's like, she's like every mother seeing their kid tortured.
She's got such an incredible face.
And I love the scene where, as you mentioned, he's finally in. And I love that, like, he's decided, this guy really wants me. I let him down. I'm going to go back. I'm going to take the job. And the guy's like, oh, we don't actually want you. We just kind of needed someone quick. And, like, you sucked bad enough that, like, we could like stall and then we would get someone else because you're not very good and you wouldn't stick to it. And he's like, oh, but I want to do it now.
Yeah. He's like, don't you dare get in my way. No one is stopping me. All of these kids show up, and they are kids. They all show up for the first day of their trial. And it's been made clear to us too that like these trials are all about attrition in terms of like negotiating a good settlement for people, like the best you can get in terms of prison time. It's not
you're not
about
gonna win.
Yeah, these lawyers and the judge, they're all the elite club where it's supposed to be a preordained thing. And the song is on fire in this court scene. This is some inherit the wind stuff that he has going on. He seems like he's the only one who's read the Constitution. I was watching these court scenes and I was like, it seems like they have a very nice constitution. Why aren't they following it? And then I thought, oh, wait a minute. I can't make that point anymore. Shoot.
Yeah.
And again, this judge is number 100 from Squid Game Season 2, so this film is just lousy with final round villains from Squid Game Season 2.
This movie's lousy with talent.
Yeah.
And he's like throwing laws out and he gets their handcuffs taken off. And he is on fire for the law, and someone's almost like, I'm gonna get you released. You see that like idealist in him of like, I'm gonna get you guys out of this. I'm gonna prove that you are not guilty.
Yeah, and everyone around him's like, yeah, obviously they're not guilty, but you still can't win, right? Like there is a dictator, like he doesn't care if they're innocent. We all know.
So he goes to the place where I referred to it as the torture motel to look for the evidence, and he gets in, he's beaten up. Why are they playing what I'm assuming is the national anthem when Sung leaves the torture motel?
That was played every single day at a certain time, and everyone in the country had to stop what they were doing, look at the nearest flag, put their hand to their heart until it was done. It's a big thing. In our recent book, No Rules Tonight, there's a scene where that happens, and a guy has headphones on and doesn't notice, and bumps into a cop, and then that's why they're like, oh, you didn't stop and salute, you're going to jail. And so he goes to jail for that. Big thing.
The scary thing about this guy is that he seems like a true believer.
He believes in his job, but he also straight up says, we need to scrounge up and make some communists, because if there really were some, we'd be in trouble. He doesn't believe in that there's a problem, but he believes in creating one so that he can have power.
Mm-hmm.
And we get a really, really effective extended flashback to what this torture was like for Jinwoo. And oh my God.
This is really effectively done, because it's like it changes from one movie to another without it being discordant.
Yeah.
In my interviews, the stories I heard were worse than were in either of these movies.
And it's revolting what they're doing to him. And there was this one line in here where they ask him, like, what do you believe in? Like, nobody knows nobody thinks about that. He has this moment where he goes, existentialism?
Yeah.
Like,
This kid's such a nerd.
Under any circumstances is going to have like a good one-liner that makes any sense or feels like their own truth if you just walk up to a person and say, what do you believe in? Like, anyone's going to be taken aback by that.
Yeah.
And what was weird to me is, you know what? I feel like you'd give the same kind of answer where you'd have to think about it for a moment, scrounge around and feel dumb, even if you aren't being tortured.
Not that he believes in existentialism. It's like, we've been at this for 2 weeks, and I've given you so many answers. I don't know, what else do I think about? I read a book about existentialism. What do you want from me, guy? Like, I'm running out of things.
I was watching that and I'm like, I would make it 10 minutes in these circumstances.
Yeah, and it's weird having interviewed these people. I'm so nervous about like asking them questions, and they're just like, I got used to it. This happened a lot. And just casually telling me these stories about being like their hands and arms put behind their back and tied together and hung from poles like a rotisserie chicken and hung there all day. And they're just like, yeah, I did that a couple times. And, you know, they just got so used to it that they're like, it's just what it was like. I don't know. This was so horrifying. They have enough PTSD that they're just like chill about it now.
Yeah, they're just like, yeah, the screaming inside my head is just part of my day now.
Yeah, and like I said, I got like actual prison journals from that time sent to me that I got to read. We included that in our books. It's tough to decide how to depict that. I don't want to like show horrifying torture, but also these people went through it. I'm telling their story. I owe it to them to show what they went through. And trying to find that balance is difficult. And I'm sure the filmmakers had the same situation of like, you know, we're not going to devalue what these people suffered through, but also how much do we want to make our audience suffer through in a way that gets it across but doesn't destroy the movie.
You don't want it to be the kind of violence that is titillating in some way.
Mm-hmm.
Because like you could see where a scene like that change the angle and add different music underneath it, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, it's like a Saw movie. Tonally, they really struck the right chord with this, because it felt very like visceral, but also it wasn't overdone. But I got the point right away. And when they showed trying to hold up his body weight, I was like,
yeah, and I think that's what's important. I think that's what's important about the way they set up that character and make sure we love him and like want to protect him. And that's kind of what I did in our scenes, is that like, I'm going to show horrible things happen to this kid. We really need to care about him to see. Again, my book was based on real people that like I had met. So like I had to figure out how to like make the audience care about them like I do. And yeah, it's rough to watch those scenes when, and it's, I think that I remember someone talking about The Incredibles and how it's weird that like we don't even flinch when the kids kill a bunch of goons, and it's like, what if one of those characters had like put a paperback book in his pocket as he walked out of the room, then you'd like, all of a sudden I know something about him, I care that he died. And so like a lot of times when you watch shows, what was it, HBO show about torturers, like you watch shows where people are tortured and it's part of the plot, or like 24 and things like that, like there's a villain, you torture him, and it's like, oh, this guy's cool because I don't know anything about this character and I've made no connection, and I can like sociopathically disconnect myself from what's going on. But like as soon as you know a character, all of a sudden it can't be cool anymore, it can't be action packed anymore, all of a sudden it's horrifying.
And we cut back to the courtroom where Sung is speechifying in court, and I'm here for it, but also I was having like memories of being told that I wasn't on LA Law during mock trial when I wanted to confront witnesses. But Sarah,
I'm so sorry you didn't get to play that scene out. I know how much you would have loved it.
Yelling
just not getting to like live out LA Law.
Yelling at other children in mock trial. Yeah. A real tragedy. I didn't get to do that. Being like, you. Anyway, I love how zealously he is advocating for these kids and how passionate he is. And we cut to where he's having a meeting with the rich guy who's like, if we can't be your sole focus, then I cannot keep you on. I have to fire you. I can't move forward with our arrangement. And he's pretty much what you said, like, poor people also deserve justice.
You mentioned like it's weird he wasn't discredited earlier, but everyone's like, oh, I guess we got to discredit this guy. Like I assumed he was already discredited enough. We didn't need to bother. I guess we got to destroy his life more than it already was.
It's scary. They ransack his office. His partner is clearly very put out with him because they were about to get rich. His wife gets threatening calls where they know his kid's age and his school.
Yeah. It's all coming down real fast. And he's getting pelted by eggs as he goes into the courtroom.
Very nice note. He has the respect of the reporter guy that he previously got into a fight with, who like hands him his non-egg splattered suit jacket and shirt.
I love scenes like that say so much and have like no dialogue, because like that's the same guy I had a fight with earlier and said I don't care, and then like he doesn't need to say like I made a mistake, I was wrong. That guy doesn't need to say I see that you changed. He's like, give me your take off your shirt, you dummy. Like, so there's so much about like I respect you now, but I don't, like, we're not friends. Like,
yeah,
like I get it. Yeah, I love scenes like that. And yeah, like that, them coming down on him, that phone call to his wife, like that, my wife had a similar phone call that we cover in our book when she was getting involved in her band book club. There's a scene like in our book that just, when my wife told me about it, like I couldn't believe it. But basically they called her parents to like make a threatening, like, do you know what your daughter's up to? Do you know what can happen to her? But she just happened to be visiting her parents that day and happened to be closer to the phone and pick up to help them, and had to pull off this phone call where she didn't want her dad to know who she was talking to. So she did it so that her dad thought she was talking to a boy from school and the cop thought she was home alone, and pulled it off to meet the cop at a coffee shop instead of him coming to her parents' house to arrest her. And then I don't know how she managed to pull this off, but she met him at a coffee shop and just had like an awkward conversation and annoyed him with like, he's like, tell me everything you know. And she just annoyed him with like school gossip and drama until he like, this girl's dumb and doesn't know anything, and left and didn't arrest her.
She was like a child when that happened, right?
Yes. Yeah, she was a freshman in college, yeah. Yeah, she basically told him about her boy troubles until he's like, this kid's dumb, she don't know nothing, I'm leaving.
So he's like, please make it stop.
Yeah.
Stop the teenager.
Yeah. Meanwhile, she's like literally smuggling books across the country.
I mean, yeah, she's just a superhero.
Yeah.
And we see the soldier that we saw earlier in the movie, the young man who was being kind of dispatched and having his job explained to him. And he has also been struck by a crisis of conscience and is going to get on the stand and say that, yes, this torture was real.
Yeah, I can't imagine being that guy. Like that pain. When I see that scene of him being told what his job is and being like, what would you do? Because it's mandatory service. You can't, if you say no, that happens to you. Even if you leave, they're just going to keep torturing them, but no one's going to be there. There's going to be no medical help for them. But if you stay there and help them, you're supporting the people torturing them. What do you do in that situation?
This was incredibly courageous.
Yeah, because also, like, it's a suicide mission for him to testify.
Yeah.
And sure enough, after he's on the stand, they arrest him for desertion.
Yep. Completely made up.
And we don't know what happens to him.
So did that guy who perjured himself to say there was no torture ever get in trouble? Was that a real thing?
I doubt it.
And then ultimately, the kids end up all getting 2 years, which is pretty unfair because they didn't do anything. But also, you know, in a situation where, like, they probably just figured, like, someone's got to negotiate a certain amount of time for us. They had someone get up and fight for them and tell the truth and acknowledge their truth in a way that wasn't happening. And that had to also be incredible.
A lot of these people that were arrested, like, the world changed very much shortly after this, though. Not too shortly, it took way too long. But the world completely changed. And, you know, the people who were fighting for freedom are no longer looked at as criminals. But people that went to jail and had prison sentence, they still had to deal with the consequences of that. People knew that they had, like, gone to prison for crimes against the country. And I know people who their lives never recovered, but like these guys, there's a movie about how innocent they were. There's history books about how innocent they were because this guy was like, even if I can't win, I'm going to stand up, and someone needs to acknowledge that this isn't true, that this is fake, and that these kids are innocent. And that's what's great. Like, Song Kang-ho is my favorite actor because every single one of his movies is like this. Whatever thing you know he's going to accomplish by the end of the movie, he's not. He's not going to win the case. He's not going to win the fight. He's not going to get the girl. He's not going to kill the monster. But it's always sweet in the way he does it. It always makes the world a slightly better place that he loses. Every one of his movies like make me cry. I met Song Kang-ho once and I asked him, like, is that a purposeful thing that you always lose at the end of the movie? He's like, no, I think I just look like such a loser enough that people cast me for those kind of roles.
He's so handsome.
He's so handsome. What is he talking about?
Yeah. I don't know. He's just a nice guy. I love Song Kang-ho.
That's so wonderful to hear that he's like a nice person, because it reads in his work too. He comes off as enormously winning and sympathetic in this movie. Even when he is being like a rich dick, like he manages to carry that in a way where you're like, it doesn't suit him.
Yeah. There's never any malice in him when when he's being tasteless.
I always say that Song Kang-ho is the opposite Tom Hanks. They have very similar careers in that they started in goofy comedies and then went on to like prestige films and became like the most beloved actor in their country. But Tom Hanks always plays someone who's really good at their job, and Song Kang-ho always plays someone that sucks at their job. And it makes it so much more powerful to watch, because when someone comes on screen and they're really good at what they do and they're experts and they have all the resources and materials, you're like, great, he's going to win. But Song Kang-ho, you're like, this guy, what? No, he can't do this. What are you doing? Calm down, Song Kang-ho. You're going to fail miserably. And then he does, but you're like, I'm glad you did it, though. You did a good job.
He was pretty smart about nobody's notarizing anything. I'll do that with my bar certification.
He takes such a journey in this movie, though, too.
Yeah.
It feels so real, even though it's a completely insane journey to take, to go from like being essentially a hustler lawyer, like an ambulance chaser, to being someone who is steeped in like the ideals and is forever changed by this experience of serving in this case.
Well, this is the first time in a while that someone making big courtroom speeches felt rousing and convincing to me. Every time I see Western anything where there's someone making a big courtroom speech to me now, it all sounds like Phil Hartman as unfrozen caveman lawyer to me now. And that is an old reference, and I need to go live in a cave.
Yeah, I mean, with this movie, it's not so much his skill, it's his self-confidence. Like, he is so, like, has a chip on his shoulder that he didn't go to college, and, like, he always feels like he has to prove himself, and that's what makes him feel like he doesn't belong in places. And Song Kang-ho, and I love that he can be cocky, but you still feel like he's so scared and hurt underneath. In other like when he's in The Host and he's like plays a father who has to kill a monster, but he can't even run a snack stand that he got a job selling candy to kids for 50 cents by nepotism, and he still can't do that job, but he has to fight a monster. He's always ill prepared, but in this case, he actually has every skill he needs to do it. He just doesn't believe that he has it, so he needs to bluster his way into proving that he can, even though, like, he's never sure.
These guys see it as such a done deal. Like, the amount that they don't know, it's like, how did they even graduate from these universities that Song couldn't go to, like, where they don't know that the British guy was the ambassador to the Soviet Union, and that's why he was there. And it seems like nobody else in this courtroom has bothered reading the Constitution, or they read it to pass a test and then didn't remember anything.
And again, E.H. Carr, my wife read the same book. It's in our book. That was one of the ones that she read. And I love that scene in there where he asks, like, so any group that reads this book is a criminal organization? Like, yeah. He's like, well, what about the school that you went to where it's required reading? Does that mean that your school is a terrorist organization? I love that. That kind of shows that, like, that's what was happening. That because, like, that was one of the troubles when I was writing our 3 books, is like I had to talk about banned books, and I kept like trying to research what were the banned books, but there wasn't a list. It was whatever book you're holding, that's the excuse we're going to use. And so they just like, and what they mentioned in that thing is that, like, the agency that rates them is literally in the same office as the police. So the police just say, hey, say this book is communist. And they're like, yep, it's a communist book. Send them to jail.
So were there books that are like that are like 18th or 19th century Brit-lit, where it's like, how could this possibly have anything to say about communism? It was like Karl Marx hadn't even written anything yet.
Yeah, I mean, it's literally one of the books my wife read was Two Treatises of Government by John Locke. And yeah, basically anything that even mentioned democracy was banned because they didn't want people to read it and be like, wait a minute, we don't have any of this stuff. You said we were a democracy. Just anything that mentioned politics, they're like, you leave the politics to us. We'll define what words mean.
What about satire? Like, could you ban Gulliver's Travels? Or
one of the things that we mentioned in our book was that you could go to jail for reading Iron Heel by Jack London. Is it kind of a satire? But in one sentence, they mention that Korea has fallen to the fascists, and they're like, "Wait, you can't say Korea's fascist. This book is banned, but you could still read White Fang, but you can't read this book." What I said in the book is, you got to wonder, do they ban books because they see the danger in their authors or because they see themselves in their villains?
That's a great line.
Yeah.
You're a pretty good writer, Ryan.
Yeah. Pretty good, yeah.
I love that. And we see that Sung has become a protester himself. He's been completely transformed by this. We see him in the middle of a protest and he gets arrested. And you're going to need to explain this a little bit to us here. So he is at his hearing, and almost all of the lawyers in Busan attend the hearing and stand for him in support. Now, what does it mean that they do that? Does it help his cause?
Yeah, so basically what happened is that there was a protest for unionization, and possibly against the same construction company that he had worked for and hired him to be their lawyer. People have been protesting against their working conditions, and the police shot a tear gas canister at one of them and hit him in the head and killed him. And so they were protesting in support of that guy who had died. And then he was arrested, put on trial, and again, didn't win the case. He went to jail. But the fact that all of these lawyers that laughed at him and mocked him and thought he was an ambulance chaser and joked that he seemed like a club promoter handing out his business cards, they were his lawyers. Like, he didn't have one lawyer. Every single lawyer in Busan dropped their cases to all. His legal team was everyone in the city, just to show that, like, you stood up for this kid, we're all going to stand up for you. And even though this movie didn't get into what happened next, that he became the president, this is showing all of a sudden people respect him. People in positions of power respect him, even though he high school graduate, never went to college. You know, we made fun of you in the past, but now we support you. And that kind of support led him to become president, which the people that were in power did during the course of this movie did not like, because you asked if people got in trouble, and what happened after the dictatorship was removed is that in order to create harmony, they were like, we don't want any more fighting, so let's just forgive and forget. Chun Doo-hwan, the dictator, was sentenced to death, and then the next president pardoned him as a kind of olive branch. And so what happened is that now Korea has two parties, one that is spun off from the people who fought for freedom, and one that is spun off from the dictators, who are just like constantly, hey, can we have a dictatorship again? And luckily Korea learned so much from this period that every time they try, Korea squashes them back down. But they're still here. They got no punishment. And that's why, like, last December, the president tried to declare martial law, and the whole country had to come together to be like, no, you're not allowed to do that. And now he's in jail. And yeah, there needs to be punishment for stuff.
Yeah,
yes.
I heartily agree.
Yes, because otherwise, look around.
Yeah.
There was an adorable story last week in the newspaper about how the president and first lady were crying that they didn't have a special meal for Chuseok. Chuseok is like Korean Thanksgiving. It happened last week. And they're both in jail now, and they weren't allowed to have a special meal, and they were complaining that they didn't get good treatment. And then it turned out that he had passed the law that took away the funding for special meals. So they're getting punishment now, but not nearly like it. There should have been a lot more punishment after decades of brutal murder and dictatorship.
Can you tell us a little bit more about the afterword for people that were portrayed in this film? And did anyone shown in this film ever wind up becoming corrupt themselves?
With No Moo-hyun, that depends on which person you ask, because people have wildly different opinions. He was accused of a lot of things, but it very much seems like drummed up nonsense. So shortly after his presidency, No Moo-hyun was one of the worst ranked Korean presidents, because a lot of people thought about him the way that people did at the beginning of this film, that he wasn't, he shouldn't be president. He's not qualified. He didn't go to college. He was kind of emboldened by the fact that, like, hey, I fought a fight that I had no chance of winning, and it did good. So for a while, he kept running for positions there was no way he could get. Like, instead of, people were like, hey, if you run for this position, you'll get it. And he's like, no, I'm going to go to this, like, conservative area because someone needs to stand up to this guy, and he would lose. And he kept doing it. But then when he ran for president, he had built up so much support that he won. But he was very much like, he was trying to do like the Nelson Mandela thing of like, hey, we can all work together. And the former dictators are like, yeah, screw you. We're going to destroy you. And he did so much good, but also, like, there were so many public failures of him trying to reach out and not getting what he wanted, that after his presidency, he ranked one of the worst presidents. And then after this movie came out, and it's not just because of this movie, like after his death and after his stories came out, and after this movie, they did another poll, and he is like the best president Korea's ever had by far. Like, the opinion of him swung so wildly. And I think as that opinion was swinging is when this movie came out, and why it was such a big thing, and why people cared so much about it. But yeah, he became president. All of his colleagues in the film, like, ended up being in his cabinet, working with him. They made a big impact on Korea just because they were the people that were told you're not allowed to have a voice, and all of a sudden they got power. They didn't get to do everything they wanted, but they made a huge impact.
That's heartbreaking. That it went that way for him, because clearly, like,
that's not the ending he deserved.
No.
Yeah. When I moved to Korea in 2002, I lived in Gimhae, which is where he's from, right outside Busan, where the film takes place. So in my experience, like, everybody loved him. Like, when I'd walk down the street, like, all the little stationery stores would be selling like Nomuhyun pencils and erasers and little stuffed animals of him. Like, people loved him, but the rest of the country was still, everyone had very strong opinions about him and said a lot. And like, when I first came in Korea, he was president when I first arrived. And when I'd go to Seoul, there'd be huge protests of people protesting against him and how corrupt he was, of like very right-wing groups that at that time, I didn't understand who he was or what he stood for. And so I just see, like, who is this guy? Like, in this town, everybody loves him. In this town, everybody's going out to the streets to protest him. So yeah, there were a lot of opinions about, but he seems like a nice, sweet boy. Personally.
Yeah, he seems like he was a good person doing his best, and like, I don't like that stuff. But I am really glad that he's been redeemed, though, and that a movie did it. So
imagine if they'd used his name.
Gosh, that does keep tripping me up, that you can't say it's a biopic.
It's a biopic.
It's Ryan, we gave you a one-time exception because we like having you on the show so much.
Mm-hmm.
I cannot wait to try and like come up with other movies to slide through on the change of rules.
No,
here.
it's never. I've been in a conundrum like all week.
Well, luckily,
it's gonna be okay.
Yeah. Next time we'll talk Chun Tae-il. His name is in the title. It's his real name.
Okay.
People love your episode last time, so yes. I think you could come on here and talk about literally anything, and people would be delighted.
Yeah. I guess because here Oliver Stone could make W, which is not at all flattering to George W. Bush, and it came out while he was still in office.
It wasn't flattering, but it also wasn't a takedown.
The way laws work here, like, if someone new comes to Korea and then posts a bad review of a restaurant, there will be 30 responses being like, you better take this down. They can sue you. Even if it's true, if you damage someone's reputation, they're allowed to sue you. So like, if you say...
This only had good things to say about him.
Yeah. And again, it wasn't really his side that they were worried about. It was the people that were the villains of the film that they were worried about coming after them. So they were like, this is a fictional story about just a guy, just some guy. Just don't worry about it. All these people with names almost similar that were like trying to destroy his life, that's just some fictional guy.
Coincidence. That line that they put in every piece of fiction where it's like any resemblance to real people is purely coincidental.
There's a drama on Netflix called Ema that's about like the shooting of a famous, like I mentioned that sports sex and screen thing where like they loosened the rules where what you could put in cinema. So there was a very famous movie about a naked lady riding a horse, and it's about the shooting of that film. And they keep referring to the president by a fake name, and it's like, he's the president. Like, we know he's the president. Like, we know who the president was during that period, and you dressed him up to look exactly like that guy, and he did things that the president did. Why don't you say the name? And he's dead. Like, what's he gonna do? Like, right. He was under house arrest for like 40 years, and just say he's the president.
I mean, I better not take the chance. I love it. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, my brain is a scrambled egg on this thing. I don't know what to do. Anyway, is there any awards talk this week?
Oh, is there awards talk? So I should mention first, so within 10 days of this movie's release, this movie had been seen by over 3.4 million people in South Korea. It sold 11,375,000 tickets, and making it, the fastest Korean film to pass 7 million admissions, which it did in 18 days. And the 10th movie to break 10 million admissions in Korea. So this movie was huge. A lot of people saw it. It was nominated for Asian Film Awards, the Udine Far East Film Festival, the Chunsa Film Art Awards, the 50th Baksang Arts Awards. Brian, if I'm saying any of these really, really wrong, let me know. Director's Cut Awards, the Bui Film Award, Korean Association of Film Critics Awards. It was nominated for all sorts of things. It won all sorts of things, a lot of awards for Song Kang-ho and for Im Si-wan. This movie was huge. It was huge. I'm actually surprised not to see it in any Academy Award, U.S. Academy Awards listings here, that it would be submitted for that. But nevertheless, it won a lot of awards and was hugely successful. And Ryan, as you have said, it changed an entire country's perception of a man, which is beautiful.
Yeah, the opinion had already started to swing, and this film just kind of jumped in at the right moment to goose it a little bit.
I love that. So yeah, lots of awards, big seller at the box office, tons of people saw it. And Rena, did you have any choice dialogue?
What do you believe in? Existentialism?
That was a good line.
And that's like such a dickish question to ask.
Yeah, and it wasn't just what do you believe in. It wasn't even like what do you believe in. I think the exact wording was like, go deeper. Like, what do you believe in deep in the parts of your heart that you hide, or something like that. And he's like, I don't know, man.
Yeah. Of all the things to get put on the spot with, that curve, yeah.
And it feels like existential, like he read a book about existentialism. He's not quite sure what it is yet, but he's like, I don't know, that book was interesting.
What a question. We love this. We love this. I loved this so much. I was so delighted. I was crying at the end, even though I didn't really 100% understand why the lawyers were standing up for him. I knew they were standing up for him.
Yeah, and them standing up, again, that's going to make no difference. But it's the fact that, like, we'll stand up even though it doesn't matter. We're going to risk our reputations. We're going to risk our careers to stand up and be on your legal counsel, even though we're not going to do anything because there's not even enough room for us to fit at the bench. We're sitting in the back. But you stood up, we're going to stand up.
It was really powerful and a good reminder that all these things count.
So say if your neighbors are rounded up on the streets because someone made an arbitrary number of criminals that need to be arrested, and someone decided, hey, I'll pretend you did a crime. Stand up for them, even if you think it can't make a difference.
And maybe you'll get to be president and then get hounded to death.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or just inspire other people to do the same thing. Start the domino effect. We're going to stay positive, Rena.
Let's do it, yeah.
Yeah.
He was a nice boy.
Should I do a scoring explainer, Rena?
Yes. Sarah, can you please tell our listeners a little bit about how we score movies?
Of course. We rate movies on a 1 to 10 scale across 10 areas that we find to be subjectively and or objectively important to most films, but specifically biopics. If you want more details on how we score movies, please scroll down our webpage at biopicapodcaststory.podbean.com. You'll also find a record of our scores for past episodes. And with that out of the way, let's score this thing.
All right. Ryan, do you want to go first?
Sure, yeah. Well, for appearances, I'll say 9. They 80s the hell out of it. I only brought it down 1 because of that young Song Kang-ho. They just put a wig on him. Could have done a little bit more. He was very clearly 40 years old. Acting, casting, 10. Passage of time, 8, only because, like, at least a text at the end to say the bro became president. But I like that they had a condensed time period. Costuming, 10. Script, 10. Accuracy, 7, because they weren't trying. They were purposely making it fictional. But from the reviews I've read, it's entirely true, except for the woman that worked at the restaurant was a creation of the writers. Storytelling, 10. Production value, 8, just because I wish there'd been more contrast between the world he lived in and like the rich world that he wanted to be part of. I wish they'd showed more of that to show that difference. In the protest scenes, there were like 6 protesters. I wish there'd been a few more. Production direction, 8 for the same reason. Do we care? 10. Yes, I care very much about all these characters, which gives me an average of 9.
Awesome.
All right.
Rena, do you want to go or should I?
I will go next.
Okay.
So for Outward appearances, makeup and hair, I gave it an 8 for acting and casting, 9 for passage of time, 8 for costuming, 7 for quality of the script, 8 for accuracy, 5 because I just couldn't get over the names thing. And that's just me being me. And I'm insufferable sometimes. For storytelling, I gave it an 8. For production value, I gave it a 7. For production direction decision-making, 7. And for do we care, I gave it a 9, which brings me to 7.6.
Okay. For outward appearances, I gave it an 8. Acting and casting, 9. Passage of time, 7. Costuming, 7. Quality of the script, 9. Accuracy, 7. Storytelling, 9. Production value, 7. Production and direction decision-making, 8. And do we care, 9. And my score came out to 8.0.
My goodness. Well, The Attorney, you have earned a second opinion. Sarah, can you please tell our listeners about what second opinion is?
I'd be happy to. So now it is time for second opinion, the element we stole from How Did This Get Made?
The prize for scoring above an 8 or below a 4 is that you get to hear us make fun of IMDb reviewers who disagreed with our assessment of the film. The worst review I could see was 6 out of 10 takes a bit to get going. Shoot. This is the first time we've ever had something fail to get bad reviews where we could
I got some on
stomp on
Letterboxd.
people for having... What?
Some on Letterboxd.
Brian, can you pick out a few?
All right, we have a 1.5-star review that says, "This one was a little over the top for me. This South Korean film feels as if it's trying to out Hollywood and really does it to a point where it almost feels like the entire film is a joke, a parody, a satire of American cinema, but it isn't. It's dead serious. I've enjoyed Song Kang-ho's other roles in Memories of Murder and the Host, but I could not get into this character or story or that overwhelmingly phony vibe it gave me. This film is so Korean. I don't know what this guy's talking about."
Yeah.
If it was American, they would have been freed at the end.
Another 1.5 stars. "If someone gets to make a film about arrested Chinese lawyers in the 709 crackdown period, I hope it is better than this messy pamphlet that might have been intended as a political ad for Moon Jae-in, the partner of the attorney IRL, though he was the real... Oh, no, sorry. Moon Jae-in is a different guy. The chopped-up storytelling and over-dramatization are unbelievable. I started the film ready to be imbued by rightful anger, but ended up being angry about the film itself. It has nothing to do with Moon Jae-in. Moon Jae-in is a totally different guy who later worked with him and became president, but is featured nowhere in this film. I don't think this guy knows what the film is about."
Yes, Sarah.
I was going to say that, the guy doesn't know what the film's about because he said it was in China.
No, he said if someone made a film about this situation, he hopes it's better than this piece of garbage.
But it seems like he does it like he is associating all Asian countries with each other. Like it might as well be.
Oh, okay,
China.
I misunderstood. Yeah. I thought he was saying something about it being in China, and I was like, well, first of all, you're in the wrong place, buddy.
This one was originally in Chinese. It was 2 stars and says, and if this is boring, you can cut it. I haven't read it yet. I was quite disappointed. First of all, I didn't get home until 1 a.m. to catch the movie. Okay, not the movie's fault, guy. I did not think it was worth it. The screen in Zinal Vaisho Hall is quite wide. Okay, he's reviewing the theater he watched it in. Row E is a bit too far forward. The director of this film did not choose your seat. The distance between F and G is just right. What does this guy think he's reviewing? Tonight I happened to watch 2 films featuring big names from Japan and South Korea, but they were both mediocre. I was also deceived by the good reviews and the high IMDb score of 7.7. The films mentioned the era and the student movement as the background. The courtroom scenes were not particularly brilliant, and some of them were too sentimental. What a pity for the good actors.
Wow.
Terrible seat. The screen was too wide. It started he bought tickets for a screening at 1 a.m. So this movie sucked.
He said he didn't get home until 1 a.m. So why was he buying tickets for a movie that started at... I don't know what his commute is. Why buy tickets for a movie that starts at 10:45 if you want to be home by midnight?
Yeah, a lot of this seems like it's the reviewer's problem and not the movie's problem.
And our final originally Chinese review is 2 stars and says, "It's a far cry from Aaron Sorkin."
Oh, I got to hear this one. Lay it on me.
That was it.
That's the
Far Cry
review?
from Aaron Sorkin.
That's the review.
Yeah.
I'm okay. I mean, that's a neutral for me, but
Do we want
that's
to
not.
do we want to revise our scores based on the screen we watched it and where we were sitting and what time we got home afterward? Do we want to?
I mean, I was sitting at my
add that
desk
in?
watching it on my laptop.
Yeah,
Do we want to review Tubi or Pluto TV?
Yes.
I was in my room crocheting what was supposed to be a bandana and came out like this because I'm not very good at it yet, and I ran out of turquoise.
I mean, your judgment of the movie should be directly affected by your crochet project. And based on this review, you should be like, I ran out of yarn, so I'm going to give this a half
lumpy
star.
around the edges. Like, clearly this movie caused me to do a terrible job on my second or third crochet project.
I mean, I guess that means you hated the movie?
Clearly, because it made me bad at crocheting, a hobby I just picked up.
I mean, I will say that
it was clearly the fault of this movie that my crocheting is terrible, not that I did not follow the directions on the pattern.
I will say
or that you're reading subtitles while doing it.
Yeah. The internet's insistence that I actually wanted to watch Steve Harvey was a little annoying. Again, though, I don't think that's the movie's fault.
Well,
no.
Neither was the seat this guy chose to buy at the time he chose to buy it.
I mean, between F and G is perfect, but he didn't get that. And
I was unaware there was anything between F and G, but
this guy is never going to find a seat that he likes because there is no row between F and G.
Sometimes we read these reviews and I'm like, some people just shouldn't leave the house. And also, I know we just watched a movie about like the crackdown on free speech and on being able to read what you want to, but we read these reviews sometimes and I'm like, maybe we do need some limits on
Sarah,
what people are.
Like last year you said maybe we have a bit too much free speech while reading these, and like you got what you wanted.
I was being sarcastic, though. I really was.
I mean, maybe fate doesn't understand sarcasm when you ask it for stuff.
That I have heard is true from people who follow The Secret, is that it doesn't understand negatives. Anyway, so yeah, hard time finding second opinions that didn't like this movie, except for that guy who really didn't get the seat he wanted.
Yeah, he didn't get his imaginary seat. But I mean, so many people love this movie, and I'm glad they do. I just want to make sure, I always talk about horrible times in Korea. I want to make sure that's clear. Korea is doing great now because they watch these movies, because they learn from this history, because they're allowed to talk about this history, and they say, hey, we don't want that history to happen again. Let's squash it down the second someone tries it. And people will always be trying it. People are always trying it here, and Korea says, no, shut up, you're stupid. There was a time in recent, I think it was 2 years ago, that every single living former president was in jail at the same time. And the only reason it wasn't everyone is because No Moo-hyun was dead and he was the only innocent one. They were all in jail at the same time. And now various people have gotten out, but the guy who was president at that time is now in jail because people are like, if you try something, we're going to hold you accountable. And it's so nice.
Oh, I want.
What is it like to?
I want the sitcom about. I want the Korean sitcom where everyone in the jail is a president.
Yeah, that would be fun. I mean, it must be so cool to live somewhere where people profit from experience.
It is, yeah. And I want to say I am currently working on a fiction book about people who work on K-dramas, and I just stole that, and there's going to be a fictional K-drama within the book about all the imprisoned presidents sharing a cell block.
Oh, that'll be so cool. Can you just
unless you're going to sue me, then I won't do it.
No.
Just put me in the thank yous.
All right, I'll do it.
Oh, I love that. That's fun.
All right.
That would be a great show. Is there any other stuff that we want to recommend people watch on top of this? I think we all agree that people should watch this movie.
Yeah, people should watch this movie. It's like all the things that feel cheaply overdone in Western attempts at feel-good movies now.
If you want to watch something similar, I again recommend A Taxi Driver, which is another Song Kang-ho movie about that time in history. It's about a taxi driver who steals someone else's fare because they're going really far into Gwangju, and it turns out it's a reporter going in to report on the massacre in Gwangju, and he ends up having to like try and help save people, and again goes from greedy to helping. Amazing film. And if you want another Korean biopic that doesn't change names, watch Chun Tae-il, which is an animated film, an animated biopic that is basically feels like if Studio Ghibli did a movie about labor activism that I'm going to be bothering you to talk about next on the show. So
Yes.
get ready.
And I think that's one of like 3 cartoons that I have on like the list. That is that and Persepolis, and there's one about Bunel, the and turtles that is also a cartoon.
Yeah, I still love the I wish I knew if it was a joke or not, because one of those ones that it sounds like a joke, but it might not have been. That Marjane Satrapi, the writer of Persepolis, said that the reason she produced it herself is that when she went to Hollywood, someone said, "Yeah, I love this book. I want to make a movie of it. I bet we could get Brad Pitt interested." And she's like, "To play who? Who exactly would he play?" Again, she said that in an interview. I hope she was doing a bit, but she might not have been.
Have you seen the Woman Life Freedom book that she came out? I've missed her voice as a cartoonist, and there isn't a lot of her drawing in there. It was just nice to see work from her.
Yeah, Chun Tae-il is so weird because it's like so serious about labor activism, and then but it still has like those weird anime quirks where people do weird anime voices. And
I'm still reading The Power Broker. It's pretty great. That's my recommend for this week.
Ryan, do you have anything to plug? We know you do.
Go to ryanestrada.com. You'll find out all about our books, and there's hundreds of pages of free comics. And I really hope people check out the Banned Book Club series, Banned Book Club, No Rules Tonight, and the brand new Good Old Fashioned Korean Spirit. They are very much about this time in history, but they're not about the politics. They're about a bunch of nerds trying to live through these political times, including my wife, who is very, very cool. Good Old Fashioned Korean Spirit just came out, and I think it's really fun because it's all about, again, people who are scared. It's about people facing all of their worst fears and the secrets they don't want to come out, and the things they are afraid people are going to turn on them for, and how they realize that that's how Korea fixed itself, is by coming together anyway. And all the people who disagreed, they realize, hey, we're kind of on the same side about like this whole we don't want to be under a dictator thing. And they all came together and fixed the country. So check out those books.
Someday, we too will learn.
Sara, can you please take us out?
Of course. Our podcast baby has matured, and we have launched a Patreon, simply an effort to defray some of the costs associated with bringing our show to you: platform hosting, recording, research, and we occasionally order a book off the internet or pay for a movie rental. We are offering shout outs and access to our awful first 3 episodes to anyone who chips in with us, with more to come. And with that, we'd love to thank Gates and Brandon, who are signed up.
Thank you, Brandon and Gates.
Thank you. Also, if you like the show, please leave us a 5-star rating and subscribe to us on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And tell a friend, or better yet, plural friends, and share us on social media. We hear it helps. You can follow us on Threads, Blue Sky, and Instagram, where we do visual aids from our shows. Our Instagram handle is @Biopic a Podcast Story, so do check us out there, and we'll link to that in the show notes as well. Please check out our webpage at biopicapodcaststory.podbean.com to see our official episode ratings for all of the movies that we've done so far. And if you would like to get in touch, you can email us at biopiclistenermailbag@gmail.com. Our music is by Ben Patch. The intro is his song Slater Cannonball, and the outro is Spring Breakers, and you can check him out on Spotify.
Oh, Ryan, where can people find you on social media?
If you go to ryanestrada.com, there's all my links, but I'm big on Blue Sky at ryanestrada.com. I'm on Instagram, ryanestrada.com, but you got to spell the dot. And I'm around.
Excellent.
Thank you so much for coming back to the show.
Yeah,
thank you for letting me Thank you for letting me constantly like break the rules of your show and bring on shows that movies that kind of count but not technically.
It was a delight.
It's okay. We're letting Alana Levin guest for all of Ken Russell. So tune in next week when we'll be talking about Sunrise at Campobello, on what may be the final time that we get to go to the landmark year of 1960, which is a crazy year in Oscars, as we already learned on our Alamo and Spartacus episodes. And however, it will be our first time with the Roosevelts. This one is about Franklin Roosevelt, but you'll get to hear us say nice things about an American president.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I think that is our show. So good night, Rena.
Yes, and thank you again, Ryan, and good night to the earnest and the cynical, and good night, Sarah.
Good night. Good night,
Night.
Ryan. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.